I spoke to Lindsay Bruce, who's the senior lawyer at Thompson's in charge of the mesh cases.
The women and the mesh campaigners have called it a whitewash. I would say that it fails to address some serious concerns, a number of concerns which are just fundamental to what you would consider to be a good report. They've failed to make reporting mandatory of the risks associated. They failed to include a number of issues which have been raised, and they still say that mesh implants far more the benefit outweighs any of the risks. Completely disregards the views of mesh campaigners. The Petitions Committee is due to sit tomorrow to hear more evidence on the report, back again about problems with the report that have been highlighted. And those problems, fundamental, they're just fundamental. The report, in my opinion, needs to be reopened, opened for public consultation, and then once it's had the consultation, also needs the whole report conclusions reviewed in light of evidence which is coming worldwide.
Catherine Calderwood was saying on the radio today that the report is up online for anyone who wants to watch it, but the main body of the report is what they agreed on. Mm-hmm. And the things that you're talking about that were left out of the report, they're actually in the appendices because not agreement wasn't come to as regards everything. So the report is publicly available, and the disagreements and all the things you say were omitted might not have been the main body, but they're in the appendices, aren't they?
That's correct. They are in the appendices, but
that's in the report, isn't it?
It is in the report. They are
You said it wasn't in the report.
I did say it wasn't in the report. It's not in the report in the fundamental way that we would want to see. It's not in the report the way that we think is necessary in order to truly address the risks that are with mesh. In order to address the risks fully, the appendix section should have been in the main report instead of being omitted and pushed into the appendices. They're the key elements. They were what caused many of the resignations that have happened with the report. That was one of the fundamental issues for them.
Just before we get to the damage that's caused to women by mesh, again, the Chief Medical Officer was saying this morning on the radio that we've gone from something like 2,000 of these operations per year, I think in 2009, to just over 100. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, it does take more than one surgeon to come to the decision, and the women are made totally aware of what's to happen to them, and there's got to be agreement from the women and acceptance that there might be some kind of risk. Are you at odds with that, or is that acceptable?
I think it's better than it was. What they're referring to there is the consenting process, the counselling process which should go and accompany any operation. The full benefits, the risks, the negatives, the positives should all be fully discussed. There's an argument that mesh implants are suitable for the most severe cases for women. We would say that they're still not being fully counselled as to the long-term risks associated. In terms of stress urinary incontinence, prolapse surgery, yes, the numbers have reduced. It's now not as common a surgical procedure, but at one point it was the gold standard, which is what has brought us to where we are today. The surgeries that are still happening, there's still an argument that the consenting process could be better, the counselling process could be better for women. And that's one of the things that the campaigners have said, that it's not clear enough as to how the counselling process takes place, what information is being made available, both to surgeons and to the women. Because remember, the surgeons are carrying out these procedures. They are getting the information from those that are providing the products. They're also getting it, I would assume, from their own research and investigation. And I think it's important that we're aware where the information comes from. The women should be made aware of where the information comes from. I think that's fundamentally important.
I'm just interested as to what the next step is. In terms of, obviously, there are some women this is what okay for. Mm-hmm. But some women it's gone horribly wrong, with mesh migrating, and they've been left disabled. Yes. And I'm just curious as to who ultimately is responsible. Do you think that I know you're going to the Petitions Committee tomorrow to pursue this even more, but who ultimately is at fault here? Is it the design of the mesh? Is it the surgeons? Is it the Scottish Government? Who will you be saying at the end of the day, if there's payment to be made, it's to be made by you?
As part of the legal process, claims are going through the Court of Session, which is the highest court in Scotland. There's hundreds of claims. It's the largest medical action in Scottish history. Of those claims, they're raised against the NHS. They're also raised against the manufacturers directly. There's a number of arguments around from design to failure to consent. Those arguments are within in the knowledge of the court system at the moment. And in terms of what we're looking for. We're looking for, I suppose it's the acceptance, the acknowledgement, and then an apology. And an apology for these ladies will come in the way of a financial payment, as that's the main way that will be recognised. So when we're looking for the legal actions are raised against NHS and against the manufacturer.
I think many of you have also called for this procedure to be halted altogether.
Correct.
And that would then mean if the country did that, the country is then acknowledging that the procedure it's been doing is incorrect.
That would be one of the arguments, yes.
And therefore that would be a sign of culpability. So is that perhaps one of the reasons you would imagine why the country is not saying stop this? Because if they say stop it, before you even go to court, that's you admitting you are making 2,000 mistakes every year.
That's one way of looking at it.
I'm asking you, the lawyer, I'm asking you.
I couldn't comment on that. I couldn't say what would be in their thought system as to maybe, but yes, you could be correct. That is one of the reasons that may be viewed as why they won't stop the mesh implant operations.
So do you think then there was undue pressure within the report making process not to come to the conclusion that these operations should be stopped?
No, I think the report just didn't examine fully enough certain aspects. I mean, if we look at the history of this, issues were first raised back in 2012 with the implants. You then get to 2013, and that was where Health Secretary at the time, Alex Neil, started to look at matters. We then had a call for it to be halted for investigations in 2014. We're now in 2017. The point of the report was to give us a clearer understanding of the benefits and the risks. The report, we say, doesn't fully do that. It covered aspects of the European element in a few lines. It didn't go into the medical. All the women want is a very clear picture for anybody who's contemplating this surgery or similar gynecological intervention to be fully counselled and fully aware of the risks, the benefits, and the possible long-term consequences, which can be quite far-reaching. Then it's obviously up to any individual as to whether they went ahead with the surgery in consultation with, we would say, a multidisciplinary approach, i.e. a number of surgeons discussing it with the individual concerned.
Where are we now then? Can we bring it up to date and have a look in the future? You're going to this, you'll be at the Petitions Committee.
Yes.
At Holyrood with mesh victims tomorrow.
Yes, that's correct.
Where are we going now? Where do you think this process and you and the women who've had these terrible things happen to them, what's happening next? What do you want to see happen?
I would want to see happen that the report is reopened and the conclusions re-examined by a number of independent, taking into account such as Dr. Agur, who's come out and made a number of criticisms and is also giving evidence to the Petitions Committee. There will be other experts who would want to give evidence who we would say should be invited. I think the report conclusions need to be reopened. I think there needs to be a thorough look at the evidence, worldwide as well as UK based. And I think if we do that and we do it properly and we thoroughly examine the facts and we examine the research and we examine the evidence, that will go some way to assisting the women, which their ultimate goal is now not about them because they're in the situation that they're in, but it's about protecting others from having to be ever in the experience that they've had.
Lindsay Bruce from Thompson's. The text number is 80295.